Good morning, students of class 8. So we are again back with the chapter Ruling the Countryside part 2. Okay. So already we have discussed about the different types of reforms, okay, revenue reforms that were made by the British. Okay. So now we will go to the impact of the British land revenue. Okay, impact of the British on the land revenues. So here you have already read about the different types of reforms, about the ijaradari system, about the permanent settlement. Okay, then about the Mahalwari settlement. All these you have read in previously. So but this topic we will be discussing about the impact of the British, okay, on this system, revenue system, this land revenue policies. Now British made various types of reforms, and land was like a commodity. Okay, land was seen like a commodity. Normally the farmers didn't sell the land. Okay, they keep their land for longer period, and they did cultivations farming. But after the entry of the British, land was being used as a commodity. So farmers, the peasants, were forced to sell the land. Okay, and they were forced to work as laborers because their loans were so high that in order to stop those or in order to give those loans, they have to return the loans. They had to work as laborers, and they have to sell the land. So this was a system. The condition of the cultivation was deteriorating, and another cause was there, that the British were not using any good method of agriculture. Okay, they were not initiating like those things, and the peasants, they were so poor that they could not make afford good equipments, fertilizers, irrigation system. So the agricultural production, it had a great loss. Okay, there was no improvement in the agricultural production, and so those people, those who are dependent on those land, like tilling of the land or all those, their progress was just stagnant. No improvement was there because no actions were taken by the government to improve the agriculture. Okay, so this was the situation, and now we will be going towards the commercialization of agricultural economy. We will read this in details. Okay, so let us see it. So here you see commercialization of agricultural economy. Okay, so the cash crop increased because the cultivators, they were forced to grow the cash crops. Okay, and the food crops were not growing because in British, they got lots of profit from cash crops. Okay, and at that time India was rich in producing cash crops, and British also got industrialized. So cotton was there being used, and so the demand for the cash crop was very much. So British thought that only to increase the cash crop. So cash crop increased. British provided raw materials, okay, to the Western market. So what were the raw materials? Growth of indigo, raw silk, jute, rubber, opium, tea, sugar, and pepper. Now they fixed low purchase prices for such crops. So and their motive was profit motive. Okay, so they fixed very low purchase price, Okay, they are buying it at a very low price from Indian markets, and they are selling it at a very high rate. So they are getting maximum profit. So they got more profit than food crops. By selling food crops, they were not getting so much profit, but by selling these cash crops, they were getting more profit. Okay. So they appointed the contractors to produce the crops. So this led to economic interdependence among the villages and unified the economy of India. Okay. So the Britishers, what they did, they appointed the contractors to produce the crops. Now in this indigo cultivations, what happens, they make a contract, okay, with the peasants, that I will give you such loan. They were ready to give the loan. They give the loan to the peasants to grow the crops. Now once the peasant accepted the loan, then what will happen, they had to follow and they had to grow the crops, because they had to return those money. Now so all this, so there was an economic interdependence. Okay, they can't avoid that. The villagers had to accept it. Okay, and it created a very much loss. Self-sufficient economy created loss. Okay, villagers lost the self-sufficient economy. So they were all bound towards the planters, those who are forcing them to cultivate. Okay. Next comes the indigo cultivators. Now the indigo is a blue dye extracted from the tropical plant used to color textiles. So this is an indigo. Indigo, it is a blue dye. Okay, it is extracted from a tropical plant which is used to color textiles. Okay. Now it is a great demand in England. Previously, Caribbean islands supplied indigo till 1790, but now it declined and Indian indigo flourished. So previously, Caribbean islands supplied indigo to the England markets, but now it stopped. Okay, and Indian indigo flourished. It demands grew, and Britain, I told you previously also, Britain at that time got industrialized. So cotton production increased rapidly. Therefore, there was a demand for indigo. Okay, and very many Englishmen came to India to be indigo planters, and they exploited the peasants very much. Okay, so next we are going to see the two main systems of indigo cultivation. What are those? Niche and Royalty. Now, what is niche system? Here, the planter produced indigo in lands. Okay, so the planter, they produced indigo in lands controlled directly. Either the planters bought the land or rented it from others. So in niche system, the planters, they produced indigo in lands controlled directly. And what happens? Either the planter bought the land, okay, or they rented it from others, and the laborers were hired, okay, appointed to produce indigo. Now in this niche system, there are some difficulties. What were the difficulties? Cultivated on now this indigo cultivation was done on fertile land, but this was very difficult where there is densely populated area. Getting fertile land was very much difficult. Second, difficult to expand the area under cultivation. So it is very difficult to expand the area under cultivation. Okay, vast area they were not getting for cultivation. And so what happens? Small plots scattered over the region that could be acquired. Okay, so small plots were scattered. Okay, so large areas, compact blocks needed by the planters to cultivate it. Cultivators needed large areas. Okay, compact blocks were needed to cultivate. Okay, so they are having these problems. Okay, they are not getting such large area, vast area, and planters, they faced conflicts when they expel the peasants. So there was a conflict when they expel the peasants and lease the land around factory. So they lease the land, they give the land. Sometimes they give I told you that they use the land as a commodity. Okay, sometimes they sell the land, sometimes they buy the land, sometimes they get it for use the land in the factory purpose. So so these are very much problems. Okay, so for this the peasants got annoyed. Okay, sometimes they expel the peasants. So for this the planters get some conflicts. Okay, face some conflicts. Number 6, requirements of plows and bullocks. So in this cultivation also there are requirements of plows and bullocks, but investment was very difficult because these instruments were required for rice cultivation also, as it is required in rice fields. Okay, plows, bullocks. So vast amount of these plows and bullocks were not there. So these are the difficulties for niche system. Okay, next we are coming to the royalty system. What is that? Now planters forced the villagers or the ryots to sign a contract. So the planters, they force the villagers or the ryots are the village men, to sign the contract. Okay, village headmen many times forced to sign the contract on behalf of the ryots. So there is a contract between the villagers or the village headman, and in this contract most often the planters, they want to give loans to the villagers, and if they accept the loan, then ultimately they have to follow their the planters contract. Okay, they had to all through they had to go through with indigo cultivation. Okay, there are no other way to come out from that. So always the planters had a tendency to give those peasants loan. If they accept the loan, then they had to fulfill the demands of the contract. So this the planters wanted. Okay, now where was I? Yes, planters forced the villagers or ryots to sign a contract. Village headmen many times forced to sign the contract on behalf of the ryots. Cash advancement were given. I told you they were always in the tendency of giving cash, who signed the contract at low rate of interest. Now the ryots, they cultivated indigo on 25% of his area. Now cultivators, they prepared the soil, sowed the seeds, looked after the crop. These are the works of the cultivators. And planters' work was to provide the seeds and the tools of farming. Crop was harvested and delivered to the planter. A new loan was given to continue plantation process. Okay, so this was the process of royalty system. So that when the crop was harvested and delivered to the planter, then the planter again gives a loan, so that this process of plantation goes on. Okay, so this process also has some difficulties. What were those? Loans never ending. There were never ending loans. Continuously, one loan finishes, then another loan they give. Cultivators got very little money for the indigo. The money given to them was very low rate. Planters want indigo should be cultivated in best soil. So this is the demand of the planter, that they should cultivate on the best land. But the land becomes exhausted. Okay, as indigo had deep roots. And once the land was sown, once the land was used for cultivation, for indigo cultivation, once the land was used for indigo cultivation, it becomes very difficult again for sowing purpose. Okay, for rice cultivation. Just after indigo cultivation, in that field rice cannot be cultivated. So that was a great problem. So these created a revolt. Indigo revolt was there. So here what is that? Thousands of ryots in Bengal refused to grow indigo in 1859. So there was a revolt because it was very oppressive, very torturous, and they were bound to grow indigo. Other than other crops were not allowed to grow. Okay, so that was a very much pathetic way of revolt. They were tortured. Next, they were refused to pay rents to the planters. So these were the way of their revolts. They didn't pay the rents to the planters. Attacked the indigo factories. Women were also participated in those revolt. Okay, agents were beaten up. Agents, they were beaten up. Who were the agents? Who collected the rent for the planters? Okay, they were beaten. And there was a social boycott who worked for planters. So there was a social boycott for those people who worked for planters. Okay, and refused to take advances to sow indigo. Now, whenever the planters would give any advances, then they will refuse it. Okay, these were their revolt. Highly oppressive system it was. Okay, and rebels supported by local zamindars and local zamindars and village headmen. So these rebels, they were supported by the zamindars and the local villagers. They because they were also threatened by the planters. Okay, so you see here they have taken the advances. They just revolted to take the advances to sow indigo, and they used very highly oppressive system to stop it. And these rebels, they were supported by the local zamindars and the village headmen, but they could not. They could not support them totally. Okay, they also scolded them and also tortured them, the cultivators, because these zamindars were also threatened by the planters. Because if they support the peasants, then the zamindars who have taken money from the planters, then the planters will just punish those zamindars. So they could not support them totally. Okay. Next coming, how the rebellion was suppressed. How the rebellion was suppressed. So here you see Ashley Eden, okay, Lieutenant Governor of Bengal, he made an appeasement. Okay, what he appeased, that riots not to be forced to accept indigo contracts. So the riots should not be forced to contract. There was a lot of publicity by educated people. Okay, they told about in the newspapers about the tortures of the indigo cultivators. Okay, and military provided to protect the planters, because everybody was so annoyed against the planters that anytime any attack can be done. So military were provided. Okay, and commission was set up. Enquiry was also made, and in the enquiry it was found that the planters were found guilty. So the riots can refuse to sign in future. In conclusion, what was made in conclusion, that the riots can refuse to sign in future, but what sign they have made now, that they had to fulfill it. They had to fulfill the existing one, but they can refuse to sign in future. Okay, this was the agreement. Now, indigo production after the rebellion. What happened? Rebellion shifted from Bengal to Bihar. Now, there Champaran workers of indigo plantation, they revolted. So, in 1917, Mahatma Gandhi took up this cause. He fought for this indigo cultivators, and began Champaran movement, okay, against the indigo planters. And he used his measure, that is Satyagraha movement, to solve the problems of the indigo cultivators. I hope you have understood the chapter. Go through it very nicely. Read the chapter nicely. Go through it, and we will meet again in the next class with a new chapter. Thank you.